All right, we have totally rewarding chats. This is Sean. How's it going, Paul?
It's going great. More importantly, how and where is it going for you with
So,
the woods
actually,
behind you?
that's true. This is the Midwest version. So, never ever did I think I'd be doing a live session from Omaha slash Council Bluffs, Iowa, as part of the trailer tour. And very exciting morning. I was in what's called the Polygon. So when they have the tornado warnings, they highlight the super areas. And for those who haven't seen my trailer, it is not large. And so it's kind of like a free carnival ride when the winds get up over 40, 50 miles an hour and it's shimmying around. Yeah, so which is kind of cool. Not, and here's where you will tell why we have the
No,
Posh or
no,
remote.
it's not cool. Like, let me unpack that for all of those that are like me that don't want to camp. So it's so dangerous where I am right now. There has to be a special place for me to go because otherwise, the room I am in moves around. Like that does not sound like fun by any definition.
You know, the sound of the rain once it's coming and going, like it's all good. And out here in out here it's actually Lake Manawa, I think is how they pronounce it. It's pretty cool out here in Council Bluffs, so cool area. So yeah, it's been interesting and yeah, so 19 stops of the 27. So I actually just turned the corner 2/3 of the way and actually from here, basically turning east and heading
Yeah.
home.
Do you as you're gallivanting around the country doing the total comp tour, like do you have an opportunity to stop at some of those like random roadside, world's largest ball of earwax or in all the places that city folk like me don't experience?
Yeah, yeah.
Like do you have a chance or do you just have to pass it by because you've got a schedule and you got to get from
Mostly a schedule. I did go to one weird truck stop the other day that was a truck stop. I don't know how this is a truck stop slash dispensary.
I
I'm not
mean,
100% sure
it's
that's
safe.
the combo you want, but I don't know if you buy on the way in or on the way out. That also could be important. No, for the most part, and I've been doing it to myself. I've mostly been going from point A, to point B, and then on the weekends, basically, I've been kind of playing and racing almost every weekend. The joke, though, has been I was in the thunderstorms in Polygon 3.5 weeks in, one day without any rain.
Oh,
It has literally rained, and some weekends it has really rained wherever I've gone. So I'm evidently the problem because I'm going in kind of a circle. It's not like I'm following the storm. So it's a me problem.
yeah. And what you've mentioned before is when you mix rain with training in a very small space, it
Yeah.
also means we hope that the fan produces some noise in your background just to get the smell out of your trailer because
Well, you saw.
I'm sure it's pleasant.
I sent you a picture. I was able to crank. I've got the old school crank washer, right? And shout out to Liz Neville in Atlanta who helped me out because I was planning on using that, and it had rained, and I'm like, this isn't going to be good. But yeah, and probably a special shout out to my wife who showed up in Nashville after I then raced and trained for another week and
Ugh.
change. Yeah, Anne was swimming in the open water, so hanging in here was lake stuff that had been cooking in the trailer while you travel and the training gear, which also is great. And so this year we're married 30 years, and I'm sure she was questioning 31 at that point. Yes, yeah. Welcome to the tour. Yeah, but now it's nice. I was able to do laundry yesterday, but it's been good. And I know part of what we wanted to talk about was beyond. I mean, I'm happy to talk about training and racing all the time. Um, is
Which I know nothing about either of them. So
yeah. Um, well, you probably could watch a race and figure out who's in front.
that I am qualified to do, but training is not something I could speak much to. My wife ran a half marathon once. Like she's the trainer. I'm not that. That's for
Everyone's
sure.
got their thing. Like, I'm definitely of the mindset, you don't have to do this or whatever. One, I think moving your body's good for your brain, whatever for walk, it doesn't even matter. And then you need to have something for your brain to check out and do. I think you actually um, sub-process. Maria Colacurcio at
Hmm.
Syndio is a big fan of that too. I think you do sub-process stuff. I saw another guy, crap, where was he at? Who was the CEO of a company who's done a bunch of Ironmans. Like part of the training is you process, and you think about a million things when you're out there for a couple hours and sometimes nothing. And so I do think it helps process, and it's just good for your mental well-being to not be in front of the screen.
Yeah.
But however
Totally.
you get to that place, it doesn't have to be any type of
Yeah.
particular event or racing or goal. Like
Yeah.
everyone's got their own thing. And yeah, the biggest thing I tell people is don't let anyone, you set your goals, on that. Because jokingly, you can always go to work to be miserable. You don't need to add extra hours of that,
Such a Pollyanna view of work. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just like you can always go find stuff to do that is that way. Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to have something in your time and, at work, you're kind of told what to do. Even you who owns your company, like you've got things you have to do. Like it's not a thing. So don't make what you don't have to do be miserable.
Yeah. No, totally.
So we're halfway through the year. Actually, so we're both in the Midwest today. I'm in the Midwest for another week, I guess. Do you count Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah.
The Midwest.
The definition of Midwest has more controversy associated than you think, but I
think 2 weeks till I get to Columbus. Yeah. Actually, so I'm thrown off. I'm 2 weeks more in the Midwest until I'm out of Ohio and then to the Northeast. And the World Cup starts today.
It sure does kick off in just a few hours, actually.
Yeah. So I can go. We didn't have, obviously not scripted, but what we wanted to chat about was we're halfway through the year. We prognosticated what's going on, but I know between World at Work, all the sessions you do out in the marketplace and where you get asked to go, what's interesting is when you get asked to go present places, they generally have something they want you to talk about.
Yeah.
And so what are you seeing as kind of the trend that's changed over the 6 months and what are people really talking about? And then I'm, kind of back into, the themes that have bubbled up because there have been some themes around the trailer tour. Or it's supposed to be total comp tour. I don't think they like the word trailer. That had some bad connotations, although I'm living in a trailer, so I was like slightly offended, but not that offended. They're gonna have to do better.
But it's a trailer, yeah.
It is.
Yeah. No, I think if I sort of reflect on the first 6 months of the year and what has or hasn't happened, because I think both can be sort of material changes from expectation. I put a social media post out on this just today, actually, about the want associated with June 7th. I think the lack of action on EU pay transparency, I don't want to say it's made the noise around pay transparency go away. That's not the case. I think it's just the priority level has dropped compared to what I think we all thought it would have been in June, back when we would have had this conversation in January. But that airspace that's been vacated by pay transparency has been filled in its entirety by even more sort of depth around AI. The desire for I actually have to make something work, or I am on the hook for creating some efficiencies, or I at least need a strategy, or it seems like I'm not hiring that many P2 roles now. What do I do about that? So like the AI knock-on effect has accelerated incredibly compared to, it was on a fast path in January, but I don't know if I would have expected it to follow the path that it has over the past 6 months.
It's interesting on that one. So AI comes up, like jokingly, so far I have tracked, the longest it's taken is 17 minutes in any given session.
Sounds
and that
about
includes intros, bios, and whatever. So, and obviously we've had some sessions on AI. So obviously, that theoretically comes up faster. I'm a horrible moderator as you go. What's interesting about AI is everyone's talking about it, but it has not fundamentally in any of the discussions changed what they're trying to achieve thing. They're figuring the how. And so probably the number one selected session through the trailer tour, total comp tour, sorry, was, we did the margarita session in World at Work, and a lot of people went with which is, given a salty and sour budget, make margaritas. And the premise is you're given 3% merit budget. How do you make it work? AI always comes up in that, but it doesn't fundamentally change the 3%. And it doesn't fundamentally change how do you communicate. I mean, maybe you can communicate better using some tools, and that's where you're seeing the how. So what I've been most interested in is the how around AI in all the discussions has bounced into how can I better communicate, like actually not what I thought it would be. Aggregating data, modeling out merit matrices with wider dispersion, narrower dispersion of the merit matrix, like doing stuff that, you and I, as,
Yeah.
probably self-proclaimed nerds, would be like, how freaking cool is this?
Yeah.
Um, it's been more around the communication.
Hmm.
And then the second piece, and be curious your thought because of all the work you do with the vendors, is how little time they've spent learning how AI functionally works
Hmm.
as practitioners. And I get it more so from HR departments of 1 to 1.5 or 2, because they have a job I truly don't want so much stuff to do. But their perspective has shifted to it'll help me communicate, help me do some stuff, but the vendors are responsible, or my tools are responsible for implementing the AI to make it better.
Yeah.
Um, and that was not something I expected.
Hmm.
One of the questions I had in some of the AI initial panels was, is this a you problem or a vendor problem?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of taking that out
Hmm.
because everyone's like, well, it's their problem. Like, they're technology people. Let them figure out the AI.
Yeah. Yeah, I think two thoughts. I'm going to start with that actually, because I do think that was one of our big pitches when we would do a AI for comp sort of session, even last year, but into the early part of this year, is your AI strategy doesn't need to be you're building something, right? It can be leveraging the roadmap of your ecosystem. And everybody, like everyone, all of the 100 providers that we track has AI in their roadmap. Like they do, all of them, with differing levels of impact. And we can go off for months on that topic, like what is it really and how is it working? But it's there. And if you start with the problem that you have to solve, not necessarily I need to use AI, your vendors might be building it for you. So I think that is still true, right? I'm glad people are picking up on that, because that was, I think, there was this assumption of like I have to figure out Claude in order to have an AI strategy. No, you don't actually. Like you can adopt things that are out there, relatively quickly. I do think there's one interesting, like it's changed an assumption theory that's come out around annual increases. Actually, it's when Lovable and a provider for AI usage, right? Like I build a lot in Lovable to prototype things and whatnot. When they came out and announced, we're just going to give everybody 10% raise every year,
Yeah.
right? Under the assumption that AI is going to make their workforce incrementally productive, and as a result, we can afford this. Like we can give people these increases because they're going to get better, more skill year to year. So I don't know if that's the answer, just to full caveat, but it was an interesting. Okay, now this is the first instance we have, in my view, of AI changing the way you design a program, right? Like to your point, it's actually the output that they created is very different under the auspice of AI has produced something in the workforce that we want to reward differently. Again, I don't think it's the right answer, but it's kind of a fascinating use case or example of, is it true that people are growing and being and adding value in different ways now that we need to reward differently?
So the
And they put a
premise
stake
then
in the
would
ground.
be, the premise be, we'll pay you more because we're going to have less headcount. Our cost structure is going to be similar, just different. Similar cost structure, but how we get to that cost is different
Yeah.
because they're more productive.
They didn't specifically say that in the announcement. It was more like we know that they're going to get more and more valuable as they stay, right? So
Oh
a
yeah,
year's worth of time with us is worth more than 3%. Like everybody is worth more at that stage. It's kind of embedded that
yeah. I mean, I don't
if
want to
you're
get out.
worth more, that means there aren't as many people, I guess, right?
Yeah, the interesting part of that, what's come up, and I'll come back to the AI piece, is one of the themes that comes up traditionally in the merit thing is um the 3%, and we all know this. 3% is kind of the, or and whatever people say, 3.5% in the market, but literally every poll I take, more people are under 3 than over 3. So, but to change jobs, you make 8 to 10%, and even in this market.
Yeah.
And so, like, maybe the strategy is, do you just do an 8% budget? Because for me, the potential great part of the AI in HR is being able to go back and say, actually, if we had an 8% budget, we would spend less money over a period of time, because you can aggregate so much more data and analyze
Yeah.
so much more data. Because the 3% thing, it just doesn't work. It's, COLA's at, 3% benefits. So few people raise their hand when I said, were you able to negotiate less than a 10% bump in premium rates? so few people. So there's negative leverage on that number in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And so is Lovable just basically getting out in front of this? And we've talked about it. I talk about it a lot. Like, when is someone to get smart enough to realize like actually a 7% increase at merit dispersed the right way, you can still give people that are, high in the range and low performers 0, but you give
Yeah.
so much more money that it actually saves you money. Like, when can we start doing that? And there's workforce analytics companies and stuff, but that still hasn't matriculated its way to this premise that we have the merit.
Yeah.
The AI thing that I'd be interested in your take is, one of the points of confusion when you ask people about AI is everyone has AI. But what the
Hmm.
I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna keep it clean. What the freak does? What does that mean, right?
Yeah.
There's my fan,
There it
right?
is.
Yeah,
Tornado inside, but at
yeah.
least it'll smell a
Inside.
little better.
This is the sidebar. I will tell people for the FYI and useless trivia in trailers. All air conditioners, basically all of them, are the same size. And so when you see one that has two or three of them, it's because they're the same size mostly. But when you have a little trailer, that means you have a ginormous air conditioner in here. And the only two settings that it has for fan speed are gale force, wind, and tornado.
Yeah.
So it'll come on, cool it down to. I turned it up, but Sarah. But on the AI thing, like, they're very confused on, like, are they just using AI to do a little matching? Are they doing it to bring stuff in? Are they
Yeah.
doing, like, and you think about it, AI goes all the way to that, all the way to up to MCP or model context protocol pieces, right? Where bots are talking to bots.
Yeah.
And so that is the part I think they're mostly struggling with, because everyone says that now you can just say, I have AI.
I
And
know.
you're like, fine. It reminds me of when cloud came out, right? We're in the cloud. And everyone's like, wait, that's great. I'm like, well, who's not in the cloud? Like,
Right.
and what does that actually mean?
Totally. Yeah, I'll plug it, right? We have a white paper series about AI for comp. Buying AI in CompTech is the third paper in that series.
Right.
And in it, two big points I would make is one is challenge your vendors when they say sort of AI native. What does AI native mean? It means nothing is the short answer. We prefer the language of like, is it AI first? Is it thinking about how do I do this algorithmically, automatically before I make you do something? That's a better framing. Like, how is it going to help accelerate what I do? I don't care when you built it. Like, it doesn't matter when you built it or
Yeah.
what infrastructure. And then the second is is it perfect? No, but we identified 5 different types of AI that people are saying, hey, I've got AI. And, one is just it helps you figure out the product. Well, that's a product problem, right? Like, yes, it's AI. Like, you're asking a chatbot, how do I do this in the software? But that's not really all that helpful. That's just overcoming a product gap. You know, there's query AI where you are asking questions about your data. It's just natural language reporting, essentially.
Yeah.
Useful, but not as useful as some other things. We call it inference AI, where it surfaces something that you wouldn't ask for, right? It automatically spots something in your data, or, it helps you see around a corner. Now that's getting
Yeah.
valuable. Of course, there's generative stuff, generating offer letters, total reward statements, job descriptions, right? Like just the raw embedding essentially of the LLM into CompTech. And then the fifth is workflow AI. We try to not use the word agentic because I think that's another buzzword that's overused, but it's like it's doing a job, right? It is sort of taking action step to step. And as I went through those 5, the value sort of increases, not linear because, but I don't want to scale it that way. But if it's just helping you figure out the product and get around, that's really not that helpful. So you have to ask more about what is the AI? What's it going to help me do I couldn't do before? And hopefully the answer isn't use my product better, because that's a product problem, not an AI
Yeah.
problem.
I mean, I think that's all correct. Like, I'm a big, the agent piece and think about what you can model and the potential. And in merit in particular, we talk about the ability to, bifurcate by where grade and level have different ranges, and you can model what does that look like, right?
Yep.
1% to the top and 7% to the bottom if you're using your 3. You can do it by department. You can analyze who's doing performance ratings. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's some cool stuff. The thing I always come back to is, as a simpleton, and people have heard me quote it, like Cheshire Cat, is, the infamous wisdom of Cheshire Cat. If you don't know where you're going, all roads will lead you there. And so, just know what you want to accomplish. And so all AI looks like the best model of car out there. Um, but if you're a construction site manager or you're a builder and they're showing you the best possible Porsche, on there, like how do I need that? Like, is that thing applicable? So all those things you said, Paul, but to me, it always
Hmm.
comes back to the simple process of like, what do I want to achieve? And then I would add to what you said, um, more in the terms of be greedy. Like, in other words, like, what do I wish I could do? Like, here's what I want to do and what I know, and here's what I wish I could get to. And, but that's still directionally, you're asking them, can I do this thing? And they might be like, well, that's not on our roadmap, or that's not like, okay, well, that's fine. Because to be honest, you don't care if AI does it, or would you care if AI did it, or they actually just figured out a cool way to do it with
Yeah,
something else?
totally.
You don't really care. It's just it has AI.
Yeah. I'm finding you mentioned that in the cloud reference, like I, I feel old every time I say this, but like I've been through one other sort of key digital revolution, right? And you know, you're my age or older as well, right? Where I remember when all of this,
Age, but okay.
or
Yeah,
older, I added
yeah,
that in
yeah,
there too, right? But if you think about the broad sort of digital transformation,
yeah,
.com plus, sort of late
yeah.
90s, early 2000s, I lived through that. And oh my gosh, is this another one of those moments? Like history repeats itself. Is it the same? Absolutely not. Are there parallels? Absolutely.
History
And
rhymes. That's
history
what I
rhymes,
heard someone
exactly.
said that, and I'm like, history rhymes, and there are a lot of correlations to this, Paul. I agree, and like the doom and gloom run, we're not going to have jobs, and think about where we'd be without the internet jobs, right? Or the the .com jobs. So 100%.
Yes. And and there's just some themes that it's like, oh, this is repeating itself where, you know, don't worry about is it Copilot or Claude. Worry about how you can use AI to be more productive, not which tool it is. Because, I was really good at sort of writing HTML and, but like the technology evolves. The concept is how do you do things digitally? That was the theme in 2000, from calculators to spreadsheets. This is sort of from sort of do it yourself to sort of, started and accelerated with the generative model. Like there's just parallels all over the place that you just got to make sure you don't fall into this trap of thinking too short term. The one thing that transcends technology change is that the problem and the question matters more than how you get there, right?
Yeah,
So move it to the cloud was an awesome technological change that unlocked value, but like knowing what you needed to do in the cloud was more important. The same's true now.
yeah.
Like to your point, knowing where you're trying to go, what's the challenge I need to address, now back into how can I do that most effectively?
And
Like,
how often? Actually, I'll
yeah,
add. So, like I can go out and run a model every month or week or day. Like the agent can go do that for you once you set it up and catch people who have moved out of range or whatever. Like some stuff you wish you could do more frequently because it just took too long, right? To do. I think that's been the big one. The one that's also came up, it's come up three times, which I wouldn't have seen coming. And I think you and I might have talked about it, or I know I talked about it at the beginning of the year show, is prioritizing which companies have AI and their price point, et cetera, because the price of tokens is going to go up, or there will be social economic things because of all the data centers and whatever, and the costs will rise. And so, how married to the AI version of that? Because inherently, and I will say this to your point, the history rhymes. When the internet came out, I will date myself. I worked at the 454th website launch, Monster. And That's how early it was. I don't know how many there were, right? So Monster was the 454th site. And the number of sites that provided no value or what have you, and it was free, and you could use the tool for
yep,
free, and you could do whatever happened. But then to your point, commercial viability had to start coming. And so there are, when you use AI, there's token fees that happen out in the market. And so these companies that have added no fees or they're doing whatever, like how important is that tool for you? Because it might be worth the money. Like if they added
yep,
15 or 20%, or it was on a consumption based model and you had to pay for it, like that's fine. But you think about all the websites or all the toys or when the
totally.
games first came out, like what was the one I gave my people are gonna either want or not want to meet my wife. So she came in the trailer with me when it stunk, and then she was like a Candy Crush adopter early on, right? And so it was free, and there were no other stuff to buy, right? And
Yeah,
so same thing, but then they needed to make money. And so that has come up 3 times where people are talking about, one, the social aspect of how much you say and use AI for the younger generations, because they're not super stoked about that. And two, the potential cost ramifications
Yeah.
coming down the road as token fees move up. Companies will have to make choices, and vendors, on where they spend.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the first conversation ever in my career, granted AI is relatively new, around like what's the most token efficient way to accomplish this outcome in AI, right? Because by and large, usage is not the concern for most of us, right? Where my team's not churning through our credits, in the way that you're hearing like Uber's engineers did, like burn through a whole budget in the first 4 months of the year. We're not that concerned about it, but it's going to be a concern at some point. Like iterating 100 times on this thing is certainly less efficient. It's going to be more costly. It may not be yet, given the pricing models of the tools you're using. But thinking about efficiency is going to come up at some point. I still check myself all the time. Like, boy, was I rankled when I had to pay $30 a month for that extra Copilot license. But it's only $30 a month, given what it can do for me, right?
Yeah.
Like, it saves me so much time. Like, it's still. So I guess even though cost matters, and I'm with you, like we need to start paying attention more to cost. It's still a bargain in the grand scheme of like
It is, but
productivity
imagine
gain.
you have vendors. So where this came up was, if you think about your tech stack in comp, right? Your comp tech stack, you've got vendors that are potentially having AI for you to get your data
Mm-hmm.
access or whatever, survey management, job architecture tools, all the way through to merit, and then maybe to review, and to your point, letters, right to information. I assume at some point it's going to be like AI
Mm-hmm.
driven, right? All this stuff. um, and so the budget will be the budget. And look, I not a knock on comp, but comp traditionally has not fared well going to get more money. Like it's been a struggle, right? The struggle is
Yeah,
real, you could say, right? So if you have a budget of 100K, just make the math easy for me, and you're using AI in all of them, and all of them say we're going to have a 20% premium, right? And you've got at least 5 vendors to make the math
totally.
easy for
Yeah,
me. You are now stuck in the choice of, like, do I get rid of a vendor and stay at my 100K? Do I go try to get a
right.
20% budget increase in a down market to do whatever? Like, so this is the part where I'm like, sure, for you, because you're in the point in AI where you're doing production, the license fee versus hiring another person or a human or outsourcing, that's an easy one. But also, you're a small company. Sorry, Paul.
Totally.
Uh,
Totally.
and so you can rationally, as the CEO, be like, I get that, but how do you matriculate that down 1,000 person or a 10,000 person shop? So
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
very curious how that'll go out. But I was kind of glad to hear, in a weird way, that the comp people are thinking from a business standpoint, like, how's this going to work? Is this part of my decision making? What are the viability? But I think the thing they're tripping the most on was what you said earlier. What does the AI do? So I'm glad actually you're writing those papers out. Like, here's the 5
Yeah,
things of what they do, and bucket those things, and what is the value to me of that.
that's right. And that's where, sorry to vendors, but like we push a lot into like when people are picking a vendor, if there's an extra charge for AI, push on what is it going to do I couldn't do before. So
Yeah.
if it's just helping me do something I absolutely could do, push on the value of that. Whereas if it's genuinely changing an outcome, like I can now match 1,000 jobs, and have to review the 100 that are hard rather than all 1,000. All right, that's a real difference in the experience in the product. We can talk about the value exchange between sort of price and return. If it's just I can ask it to create a report that it already created, why
And
is
I
that
would push
charging
back
more,
on
right?
the time. That'd be my biggest pushback on that, is not the time. I would look and say, actually, I've said it. Well, I guess that was the first time I got World of Work came after me. Like, the CFO doesn't fucking care
Yeah,
about your time, right? You joined comp, they don't care, right?
right.
So I'm not a big time. It saves me time. They don't care if you had to match jobs on a Saturday. You had to spend 80 hours of merit.
Sure.
But I think they do care if you go back and say, this thing that I used to run once a year to look at turnover and who's at risk,
Now I
and
do
I
it four
can run
times.
that
Or, yeah.
weekly,
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter, right? And now you can catch and be like, actually, I can reduce turnover, or I can get our high performers in
Sure.
range. Like I can do this so much faster. That's where I would say use that value. Same question, Paul. Like,
Yeah,
what value can this provide me? Like, actually, we can tell you this thing that used to do once a year because you
totally.
don't have unlimited time is
Totally.
there. And I actually think the job architecture and consistency is another one. Like
Hmm.
we've talked about job description creation. I keep talking about the inversion of that. Um,
Yes.
in that yeah, AI is a great tool to actually consolidate where everyone thinks they're different and better than everybody else
Totally.
into a really good job architecture because those jobs aren't really that different. Or you mentioned earlier that
Yeah.
actually is a different job. Like it's a
Yeah.
really different job.
Yeah, we're doing a little campaign to review the different job management providers out there. And that's one of our questions we ask in our structured demos when
Uh,
we do these reviews is like, how does this help me identify duplication? Or if I'm looking to create a job, it flags. This really isn't that different than the one you've already created, right? How do you can AI help you govern the job architecture? Is like yeah, that's the gem of the question, right? And it should. It really should. And there are some tools that do a good job of flagging, hey, this one looks pretty similar. Or I've scanned your library. Here are 3 jobs that kind of are the same thing. Do you really need 3 different descriptions? So the capabilities are coming or are there in some
but
instances.
that's interesting because one of the other things, kind of more the pre and post discussions over this, that has been really interesting is the theory that AI is going to reduce the amount of time that it takes you to do stuff. And then you potentially don't need more headcount, or they're waiting for you to get more efficient so they don't backfill the fourth person in the
Yeah,
department three, right? Most people feel like they're caught in this middle ground right now
mm,
of I have to communicate more than I had to if I'm in a transparency state. I have to do more stuff. I am not management thinks I'm more efficient because AI is magic, and Meta's laying off 8,000 people, and and in theory it's going to be here, but the nirvana of save time and efficiency versus what they're being asked has not caught up, but they can't get additional resources for the thing. And so I think there's this weird squeeze going on right now
mm,
with the reality of what's there. And of course, on top of that, everybody's calling them all the time about why their stuff's better with AI. And there's more and more tools, and you can dev so much faster now. And so there's more vendors. And so there's this weird thing in comp right now where I jokingly tell people I don't want to be a practitioner at times because it looks really hard. I think it's really hard right now. And this,
yeah,
it hasn't shaken out, kind of like when the internet came out, like you said, Paul, of like, what is a good vendor? What is it actually doing? What is it actually going to do better than Excel? And actually, can I do it in Excel with Claude
totally.
just as fast? And like, but they don't know yet, right?
Yeah,
Because we don't know, like,
that's right.
there's the security piece with the company yet. And so I think we're in this really weird spot right now, more so than we were 6 months ago.
I think that's true. I think we actually call it out in our AI white papers as well. Like the build versus buy decision is different now than ever before. You know, 10 years ago, if I walked into a client and said, you know what, you should build your own merit tool. Like, what? Like, why would you ever do that? Right? Like the risks, the challenges, the cost of managing a custom, application would have been ludicrous. Right? We taught everybody, and it was right to move to configurable, SaaS platforms. The economics are changing there, right? Now, there's some real risks and considerations. So don't get me wrong. Like, I still think there's a place for real enterprise software, but the decision is different than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And people are just learning to ask the question now. Okay, well, how would I think about build versus buy again, given the choices I have?
Well, and your
Um,
vendor becomes the IT department internally, your partner, like it's really, there isn't, maybe I haven't thought about it this way before. There's not a best practice yet. So
Correct.
there
I
used
think
to
that's
be
right.
kind of it used to be like, well, okay, this is the starting point of what most people do. And now I'll just kind of tailor that to, my org, right? Because, I do believe everyone's org is, they are, they're at some level, they're all unicorns. I got different humans at different works, whatever. But you could start with, if you were looking for data and you were a, manufacturing plant in the Midwest, like you have a general start of where you would start, right? And how you would do it and the tools you might use 10 years ago. Fine. Now you're like, crap. Like where do I start and who do I look to? And they're all like, I don't know, what are you going to do? Um, and actually I do think the affiliates or whatever group you can get into, World at Work Forum, what I don't know, there's all other places like that has become, I think, more mission critical for companies to kind of network to figure stuff out, because I'm yet to find the vendor who calls you up and says, our stuff's kind of marginally okay to bad. Their stuff's all great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I do think it is, I do think it's a hard time.
Yeah. I also, you raise an interesting point where IT, I feel like in the duration of my career, that function has evolved a lot. And I don't spend my day thinking about IT. I think about comp people. But like my partnerships with IT when I was in house were, I don't want to say transactional, but kind of transactional, right? Like we had to figure out how to buy the systems we wanted to buy, and they kept the lights on the core infrastructure. And you do whatever the heck you want within that infrastructure, right? Like you've got your shared drive, your place to secure the Excel spreadsheet, do what you want. In a build versus buy AI world, they are the vendor. I think is a good point. Unless they agree that like you're going to do your own thing, which I don't see a lot of, organizations of any size doing. And is IT ready to step up to that, right? I have some clients where I see IT leaders and CIOs sort of clinging to, I want to own it, but the capabilities aren't really there for them to partner well internally in that vein, right? They're not product people. They're infrastructure people. And now people want to build products to sort of do this work, and they're not equipped to partner in that way. So I think there's an interesting challenge with how we work with our own internal partners yet on, is it going to be IT? Is it a new function? Is it, how do we get this done if we're going to build things is harder than it sounds in larger organizations where IT may not be really equipped to do that yet.
And they're getting press from other departments too. You're not the only department. So yeah, the way I told someone the other day was, it's not just more variables in an algebraic equation. We've moved to an integral based calculus. We're not quite yet to differential equations, which would be fun. But, the complexity, kind of three-dimensional complexity to get this stuff done. And again, we're so young in the journey. And so I do hear a lot of people talking about, is there really differentiation? I do think, they're staying with vendors they trust and know a little bit, and kind of riding stuff out a little bit to kind of learn. So there's a lot of this wait and know over the 6 months, and especially on this, getting out and to talk to people and, just hanging out and chatting with people about what you're seeing. I do think people feel better when they're like, am I, I can't figure it out. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Is that weird? And you're like, no. It would be completely weird if you had it all figured out.
That's right. Yeah, totally.
So
totally.
Over the next 6 months, if people are listening, we have guests kind of a wide range coming, Paul. So we have, we've got someone who does kind of coaching stuff, kind of usually more, executive or whatever, but kind of professional growth coaching, trying to make sure I get my list going right. We've got, some people who do some presentations out in the market, and then, practitioners also coming out talking about best practices. One of them, it's not till like August, Shayna Cook from Dominion Payroll, they actually have an employee that's an AI bot on the org chart. So I'm kind of super stoked. Yeah, she's great. She'll be here. But if people have anyone that they're interested or a topic, drop Paul or I a note. HVAC, maybe HVAC provider. I'm pretty handy, but I'm not, especially after going through the tornado and thunderstorms, and I'm not 100% sure I want to try to replace that with something smaller in the roof.
Yeah.
Myself.
Do they build mufflers, like mufflers for HVAC?
I can shut all the things but one, but it actually gets louder because then it's like venting it all the air through one. Yeah. And even if I point it the other direction, it doesn't take long because there's not a lot of space in here, but it is.
Yeah. This is legitimately. This has not
convinced you.
I was just gonna say that, like, this is why the answer to the question, you have an unencumbered weekend, you can choose to rough it in the woods or hang out at a posh resort. There is a correct answer. Like, you don't have this problem.
Talking with no people, chilling out, having a drink, looking at, hanging in nature, playing in the lake. Like, it's great. There is no other answer. I don't want to have to share an elevator with a bunch of people. I don't have that problem.
I don't want to share the smell with the rest of my family. Like, I have an 11-year-old boy who is discovering that he needs to clean himself differently, like literally live in life, and I don't want to be too close to that for like
Yeah,
a
wait, how
weekend.
big of resorts are you going to where you each have your own bedroom? Like, I didn't even know they don't let me in places like that.
Even if it's one bigger room, like the circulation, like we're
They
not
make
walking
trailers,
in.
so they make we do by default have a small trailer. So when she got here, like it doesn't have a room. Some of them have a
Yeah,
separate space. Like
yeah,
you can solve that problem to where it's about the size or bigger than
yeah.
your room.
And more
Um,
importantly, if it's raining outside, we're not in it. Whereas you're sort of choosing to sort of engage with the world, and touch ground, touch
well, but
earth when it's
race dates are race dates, you know, like that's your
yeah.
deal.
That's just
Um,
work.
yeah,
That's work and it
it was actually
stinks.
one of my favorite parental unit moments. My daughter did her first Fondo 100-mile ride thing in Tulsa, and it rained all the time. Not 70, so it was warm. But my like the moment that will live on forever. They closed part of the roads. There's water coming across, all the standing water. Um, she's tiny. She's 5 foot tall, like 100 pounds, and so she's going to whatever. She's newish to biking, and she's like, "Dad, I need to eat a waffle. The sports waffles, right?" I give her a waffle, and no sooner do I give it to her that she goes to draft behind me, that a FedEx truck goes by and drops like a tsunami. We were rip curling through this thing, and all I hear back is my waffle, my waffle. And I look back, and she's got like this waffle that's starting to disintegrate with road goo on it
Oh,
and everything else. Yeah. And my ladylike daughters, I tell people, I have amazingly strong women that we raised. They're not ladies. She just ate it. She didn't care. Like, yeah. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, it's a proud parental moment. She didn't whine. She just plowed through the day.
I
Um,
am not cut out for
Went home and
any of
put her
that.
stuff in a washer and dryer. To which actually my wife, who was there and did a shorter ride that day, took my stuff right away and was like, there is zero chance of staying in the trailer. Because I'm a typical guy. I'd be like, I just put it in a pile and dealt with it later. She's like, no, that's not happening. Um, yeah. But if people have guests like or topics or
Yeah,
whatever, I'm gonna try to I want to get some stuff with TA on. We'll try to get some more AI. But if people have guests, let us know. Anything we can do better, let us know.
totally. I think we should. If you just have questions you're curious about from us, right? We don't put
Yeah.
Sean through the speed round often. We don't put Paul through the speed run often. If there's a question you're curious about, send it to us, right? We'll dig into the mailbag if a listener has a query.
Oh yeah,
So
that would be kind of interesting if people have questions that they want us to answer at the
yeah,
beginning of
toss it
a
out. We can bring it
episode.
on. We can give it to a guest. Like absolutely. We're very open and democratic here.
Yeah,
So
at
if
some point we might
there's
have to throw some change ups in because we are getting people who I've met out who will walk up and be like,
they know the answers
"FYI,
already. Yeah.
I'm crunchy peanut butter." I'm like, okay, I'm not going to keep track of that. I can barely keep track of my own preferences. But yeah, so this was great. And again, I'm stoked you have the AI series coming out. Paul and I are happy to talk about this stuff any point in time. There's some good, and if you want just other resources to drop a note.
Yeah.
Um, and we're happy to point you in the different parts of directions.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, enjoy. I will be weirdly. Hopefully, I'll catch you in person.
Yeah, passing through the
At
neighborhood here.
IRL as I spend the weekend near Rockford. Otherwise, thanks, and we'll catch up with everyone soon.
Yes, thank you. Good to see you.